Hello, good evening and welcome back. So Denmark will limit the number of non-Western residents in neighbourhoods to 30% to reduce the risk of religious and cultural parallel societies. Now, at a glance, you might think, well, yeah, that sounds good, that's fair enough. But then there are two things to consider. One is, how much is 30%? In a population where it is 89% homogenous, and of those 11%, only 58% are from a country considered non-Western. So it doesn't really seem to be making such a big difference at the moment. So, you then got to think, well, yeah. It then comes down to the size of the neighbourhoods, and that's where you get the terms ghettos and the like, which, credit where it's due, Denmark does actually have 4 criteria to legally define a ghetto, which is quite interesting, and we'll get into it in a moment. But the other thing is repopulation rates. So it's quite a well-established fact that a more modernised society tends to have fewer children. 2 reasons for this. One is because there is a lower rate of infant mortality, which is to say that you know that if you have a child, they're far more likely than not to reach adulthood, so you don't need to have a few extra in case some die. Which is morbid as it sounds, used to be how things went. And we'll skip over contraception for now. But the other is people are waiting longer in order to start a family, and therefore they don't have so much time for such a big family. Because women are encouraged to work more, to view career as more important than family. Of course, they don't have so many children because they wait longer and they don't put so much importance into it. By the time they do, it's too late. As well as the cost of raising children. So they're the 2 main factors here. However, if there's a family that is quite accustomed to a much lower standard of living, and they're in a wealthier country, then they can afford to have more children because they don't really care about living in a shithole. Because, hey, you know, that's their home, that's where they're from, and that's what they're used to. So, of course, you see immigrants, particularly non-Western immigrants, having far bigger families. Those 2 contributing factors. And that would be the issue then later on to say, okay, we're going to cap it at 30%, brilliant, but now what if Danish people move away, or if they're not having as many children as the immigrants, in which case what, are you then going to forcefully evict non-Western immigrants? Is that the goal? It does become a bit more difficult further down the line. To me, it really is the old Andrew Breitbart saying of politics is downstream of culture. So you've got to actually address the root causes instead of just the symptoms. But let's get on with it, and let's particularly focus on their definition, because I find it quite fascinating really. The legal definition for a ghetto, which they're now no longer using the term. So they got 4 criteria, alright? And they are, in no particular order. 1, that more than 40% of residents are unemployed. Another is more than 60% of 39 to 50-year-olds do not have an upper secondary education. Third, crime rates are 3 times higher than the national average. And 4th, residents have a gross income 55% lower than the regional average. So, of course, starting at 1, you can cut that down by reducing social welfare. If you can't earn and you haven't got an income, jobs are good. And this is actually far more important than just cutting down unemployment. Because it's the difference between having a faceless organisation giving you money no matter what, compared to actually having to receive assistance from people who know you. And therefore, of course, you're going to feel a bit more guilt taking from them than you would just a stranger or the state, or receiving UBI, for example, because you're not really thinking where the money's coming from. Whereas if somebody is personally helping you out, or a community is, then not only are you going to feel guilt about receiving money from people that you care about and you know that they've worked for it, but also they're far more interested to have your best interests at heart. They're far more involved in that way in order to get you back on your feet and being a contributing member of that community again, which then coincides with the crime rates that they say here has to be 3 times higher than the national average. That isn't going to happen either if you have a stronger community cohesion, so that's dealt with. when they say more than 60% of 39 to 50-year-olds do not have an upper secondary education, that is a far more difficult one, because it is actually quite a close correlation between education and intelligence, like it or not. Of course, with the way that the education system is going, that relation is decreasing, but nonetheless, the correlation is still there for those in that age range. And the residents have a gross income 55% lower than the regional average. That isn't so important, again, if it comes down to communities. The reason being is they wouldn't be using money so much as they would be simply helping each other out and using their skills. If you were that way inclined, you could even say it's communism on a small scale. As you wish, because it is a commune and people are helping out with their own skills. So that wouldn't really matter so much. And that's why the root cause, as I say, is to address the causes instead of just the symptoms. To say it's about community cohesion, and it is understanding the national identity and the role that individuals play to give themselves a sense of meaning and purpose, and to be able to communicate with their close society, maybe even wider society. Things like lockdowns cut off this communication, as well as conflict theory, which is when you get different cultures coming in, that you no longer trust your neighbour who has the same culture as you did before. And of course, globalisation only makes this worse. So they say 15 Danish neighbourhoods currently fall into this category, 25 others are considered at risk. Yeah, okay. But it gets even better, because in these neighbourhoods, there are legal changes as well, as misdemeanors carry double the legal penalties in places elsewhere. So, to me, it's just kind of making a bad problem worse, because it's not so much the school to prison pipeline as much as once you've gone in prison, it's difficult to get back on the straight and narrow. That's why, again, community support is so vital. But also, the daycare is mandatory for all children over the age of 1, or family allowances are withdrawn. Which is very close to the bone, personally. That, of course, you want to be able to provide for your children and also raise them yourself. But if you're unable to raise them, or afford to raise them, and you need external help, if you're going to the state, then if somebody is lending you money, then it's also down to them what the terms are. If you wish to accept a loan from somebody, or charity from somebody, and they say, well, sure, but you've also got to wear blue on Wednesdays, then you're going to wear blue on Wednesdays. And it's the same thing, just far more difficult when saying, yeah, sure, you can have this money, but give us your children during the week. Alright, cool. If you don't want us to take your children, support yourself. And let's bloody well hope that this is actually well-intentioned and it's there to give the children a better education that their parents are able to provide for them. But that is a very difficult decision to make for those families then. Again, bring it back down to community, jobs are good 'un. The existing legislation also calls for council homes in these areas to be reduced to 40% of available housing by 2030. And that is something that, again, is far better, because the council or the government shouldn't be getting involved in this. If you fall on hard times, you sleep on the couch of a friend, and they will help you get back on your feet over the next couple of months, and then you can move back out again. That is the process in the way that these things should work. Or, if you want to be more idealistic, then your local church will take you in and enable you to get your act together before you can then get back out and get going on what you're supposed to be doing. So, that's the way that Denmark are treating things. So it's a nice idea. I think it's a little bit idealistic, but also a little bit under what they should be doing. That if they wish to take such a hardline stance and put an actual number on it, then good on them for actually giving a number, which most countries or most people actually fail to do, to say there should be more immigration or less immigration. But you go, well, how much then? And Denmark are saying, well, hey, no more than 30% non-Western in the neighbourhoods. It's like, yeah, you put a number on it. Good going, well done. That number should definitely be lower if you're looking for assimilation. You can't just have a third immigrating into that neighbourhood and expecting them to assimilate. So no, that is far too high. We do need this to be low single digits, realistically, if you're looking for assimilation, and you really should be. unless you don't like your country, in which case you shouldn't be there. But that's it for me. So as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think this is actually a good ploy, and it should be done? Moreover, that we should have racial quotas, if you will, for different neighborhoods, or we think no, the quotas don't matter. The culture does. So how about we embrace our national identity of whichever country we belong to? So Denmark being Danish and England being English. And if you wish to assimilate, then by all means do. But we're not just going to be giving you stuff. Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And of course, as always, until next time, have a good one.